touched my soul with your words. I wonder if we ever...
88, and I was a little boy, and I was with my dad on a Bible study. We were visiting a mullet. It was a guy with a mullet. It was the 80s. Mullets were cool. And there was, he was a cool guy. He's one of those 80s guys that, like, a Camaro dude with tank tops. And he had a gold chain with a cross on it. He was like a Christian guy with, he was intense. And my dad, Bible studied with him. They had vigorous discussions. I would go with my dad on Saturdays out in service in my little sweater and penny loafers, doing religious calls. Yay. I remember one study with the guy with the mullet. My dad was having a Bible discussion with him. Mullet guy walks into his bedroom, and when he comes out of the bedroom, and he's holding the Watchtower book. And my dad's told me to, he said, grab your coat, it's time for us to go. And I remember the mullet guy didn't want Dad to go. He stood in front of the door and he said, but Jim, it's your book. And he kept saying, it's your book. And my dad wasn't angry or anything like that. He just said, I will pray for you, but our time together has gone as far as it can go. And we went out to the car and we left. And no, I did not ask my dad why. I was not raised that way. Did not ask questions or talk back to my dad, ever. Also, I was 9, so I didn't care. But I did not care until much later, when I started spending a lot of time reflecting on my JW childhood. And when I got into my 30s, and I revisited that day in my mind. Among other things, I had the recurring moment of Mullet Man walking out of his bedroom, holding the book. It was a Watchtower book. It was Let Your Kingdom Come. If some of you people from the 80s might remember that. It's just I remember it because my dad always had me with him, and he had the deluxe Watchtower library. He was an elder, and he was just the classic elder / dad. If you've been to the assemblies where you see the dramas, the family turns the TV off so that they can study a Watchtower publication. If your family didn't do that, ours really did. I cannot tell you how many hours we're sitting at the table, and I'm looking over at a perfectly good TV set, and it's not turned on, and we're going through the most god-awful hours of my childhood. But this book is a matter of curiosity to me. My dad, a Jehovah's Witness elder, left a man on the battlefield, and I wanted to know why. Obviously, the book contains bad info, but I didn't know what. I don't know what. I've read the book. My dad, it was one of the books my dad made us study when we were kids, and I couldn't remember anything remarkable about it. It was a cheap little 1980s dime a dozen book that Watchtower punched out, and it was just your standard, look, I don't care about the book. I'm facing my childhood. I'm trying to understand who my dad was. And I don't know what was in that book that made my dad turn and walk away from his own Bible study. But on a later night, while I was snuggled up in a blanket with Jehovah Cat, I was thinking about the book, Let Your Kingdom Come. And I realized it had to have a bad prophecy in it. I mean, you got a Jehovah's Witness in somebody's house, and the householder is asking them not to leave, and they just want to get out of there. And I closed my eyes that night and returned as deeply as I could into my memory, and I retrieved something. The book, Let Your Kingdom Come, was missing the gold crown on the front. It was a brown book with gold letters, and its one distinguishable feature was a gold crown above the title. And in that moment I realized that the book Mullet Man was holding must have been an early printing that contained a false prophecy that was later edited out. And the next day I went scrambling to find that book. eBay, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, used bookstores everywhere, trying to find... This is a fairly common book, but it had the crown on the cover. And I kept talking to people on the phone, and they would network with other bookstores trying to find a copy of it without the crown above the letters. And it was a fruitless endeavor. I could not trace down a first edition of this book. It may have been a trial run. I thought to myself, it may have been just a very limited printing. I gave up. But I did not give up thinking about it. And one night, I was reliving the book burning I was at when I was a ministerial servant. It was playing like a film reel in my mind. Piles of watchtowers dropping into the burn barrel. And I realized Mullet Man was not holding a Kingdom Come book. It was the commentary on the letter of James, also a brown book with gold letters. And I know nothing of this book. I've never heard of it. I remember glancing at it in a box and thinking, that doesn't sound like a very Jehovah Witnessy title. Picked it up, opened it up. It didn't even hardly have pictures in it. And it went in the burn barrel. It's gone. The scandal being that this particular book was heavily influenced by Raymond Franz, a governing body member later disfellowshipped for apostasy. And the commentary book is now disavowed by Jehovah's Witnesses. Not for false prophecies, it contains none. In fact, it contains none of the usual fantastical dogmas that typically character... Look, I'm not trying to sell you the book. I don't care about the book. We're talking about the implications that go along with the book. If one man can corrupt literature at Bethel, then what prevents it from happening again, or happening now for all we know? Because Watchtower literature, after all, is written by humans under the direction of Holy Spirit, just like the Bible. Yet somehow it's different from the Bible, but you still have to obey it like the Bible. I don't know. The thing is, it's not old light or new light situation that usually would cause a Jehovah Witness book to get burned. You're talking about apostate poison in a Watchtower book that they distributed to the public. The larger question being, how could Jehovah anoint a governing body member that he knew would apostatize and harm his organization? I know, Jehovah allowed the Judas plot to unfold, but that was preordained and for a purpose. The Bible says that Judas was born to be the son of destruction. It's what God wanted. it was in, or it was not what he wanted, but it was in his purpose. It was preordained. And you may be asking, what was God's purpose in ordaining Ray Franz? To spread a mental disease that would someday infect thousands of with the cross on it. He was like a Christian guy he was intense. And my dad, Bible studied with him. They had vigorous discussions. I would go with my dad on Saturdays out in service in my little sweater and penny loafers, doing religious calls. Yay.
Our love belongs to the sun, witness of its birth. We'll make it through, no matter what, 'cause you touched my soul with your words. I wonder if we ever...
88. My dad's told me to, he said, grab your coat, it's time for us to go. And I remember the mullet guy didn't want Dad to go. He stood in front of the door and he said, "But Jim, it's your book." And he kept saying, "It's your book." And my dad wasn't angry. I remember one study with the guy with the mullet. My dad was having a Bible discussion with him. Mullet guy walks into his bedroom, and when he comes out of the bedroom, and he's holding the Watchtower book. And I was a little boy, and I was with my dad on a Bible study. We were visiting a mullet. It was a guy with a mullet. It was the 80s. Mullets were cool. And there was, he was a cool guy. He's one of those 80s guys that, like, a Camaro dude with tank tops. And he had a gold chain